The official reports are calling it a capture, but let's call it what it really was. The most complex direct action raid in the history of the Western Hemisphere. At 0200 hours on January 3rd, the United States didn't just knock on the door of the Miraflores Palace, they kicked the entire building down. Donald Trump has confirmed the capture of Nicolas Maduro, but the real story isn't the politics, it's the physics of the operation. We are talking about a synchronized strike involving the US Navy, the Air Force, the Army's 160th SOAR, and Tier 1 operators from Delta Force. If you want the breakdown of how US Special Operations Forces can infiltrate a hostile capital city, extract a head of state, and vanish before the sun comes up, subscribe now. We are dissecting the raid on Caracas. The operation began with shaping fires. Before any boots touched the ground, the battlefield had to be prepared. Reports indicate that the opening salvo came from the sea. BGM-109 Tomahawk land attack missiles launched from US destroyers in the Caribbean. Their flight path was deliberate. They hugged the water and then climbed rapidly to crest the El Avila mountain range north of Caracas. This natural barrier usually protects the city, but for terrain-hugging missiles, it was just another waypoint. The targeting was surgical. They didn't hit the barracks, they hit the nervous system. The first impacts were the communications antennas on Cerro El Volcán and the command centers at the Francisco de Miranda Air Base, known as La Carlota. Simultaneously, the escape hatch was welded shut. The airstrip at Higuerote, identified by intelligence as Maduro's primary evacuation point, was obliterated by precision munitions, likely delivered by MQ-9 Reapers loitering silently in the dark. While the missiles blinded the regime, air dominance was established by the heavy hitters. We have confirmation of F-35 Lightning IIs operating directly over the capital, using their advanced sensor fusion to jam local radar and designate targets. Flying high cover were the F-22 Raptors, ensuring that if any Venezuelan jet tried to be a hero, they would be splashed before they even cleared the runway. But as we now know, the air war was just the distraction. The real blow was coming low and fast from the coast. At exactly 0230 hours, the tactical situation shifted from an air war to a ground assault. The skies over Caracas filled with the distinct heavy rhythm of rotor blades. This was the arrival of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers. Their presence confirms this was a top-tier mission. They didn't come in with standard transports. They brought the entire Special Operations toolkit to seize the capital's airspace at rooftop level. The formation was massive. We have confirmed visual reports of MH-47G Chinooks, the heavy haulers modified for low-level night operations, and MH-60M Blackhawks. Flanking them were the MH-60 Direct Action Penetrators, DAP, essentially flying tanks armed with chain guns and rockets to suppress any ground fire. But the most terrifying sight for the regime's defenders were the MH-6 Little Birds. These agile helicopters carried Delta Force operators on their external benches, ready to insert directly onto the balconies and courtyards of the Miraflores Palace. Hovering above this swarm were AH-64E Apache Guardians from the US Army, providing overwatch with 30mm cannons, while V-22 Ospreys from the US Marine Corps held the perimeter, likely ready to deploy a quick reaction force if the extraction went sideways. The target deck was wide: Miraflores, the Cuartel de la Montaña, and the Naval School in Mamo. The assault was kinetic and violent. Delta operators breached the primary residence at Miraflores using explosive charges. But here is where the tactical breakdown gets interesting. The non-permissive environment they expected was surprisingly permissive. Intelligence reports indicate that opposition was almost non-existent. The Presidential Guard, theoretically the most loyal unit to the regime, dissolved. There were no heavy firefights reported in the courtyard. The Delta teams moved with speed, locating the high-value individuals, HVIs, Nicolas Maduro and his wife, and securing them in minutes. This lack of resistance suggests that the shaping fires we discussed in Part 1, the Tomahawk strikes, had successfully severed the chain of command, leaving the defenders confused and leaderless. Or perhaps they simply stood down. Is the CH-47Gs lifted off from the palace grounds, carrying the prisoners north toward the fleet. The tactical picture revealed a startling anomaly. In any standard doctrine for an operation of this magnitude, the first priority is CAD, suppression of enemy air defenses. You destroy the enemy's ability to fly. Yet, as the sun rose over Venezuela, military analysts realized that the United States had deliberately left the teeth of the Venezuelan military intact. We have confirmed that the primary air bases at El Libertador, Barcelona, and El Sombrero were not struck by Tomahawk missiles. These bases housed the regime's most lethal assets, the F-16 Fighting Falcons and the heavy Russian-made Su-30 Mk-2 fighters. Under normal circumstances, these jets would be the biggest threat to a slow-moving helicopter assault force. A single Su-30 could have wreaked havoc on the extraction team. So why were they ignored? The answer points to a massive intelligence breakthrough or a negotiated stand-down. The US planners didn't destroy those runways because they knew, with absolute certainty, that the pilots would not scramble. Whether through overwhelming electronic warfare jamming from the F-35s and F-22s that blinded their communications, or a pre-arranged deal with the Venezuelan high command to sacrifice the political leadership to save their own infrastructure, the result was the same. The Venezuelan Air Force sat on the ground while their commander-in-chief was extracted. This non-kinetic neutralization of the enemy Air Force is the defining feature of the raid. It turned a potentially high-casualty war into a law enforcement action with military hardware. The F-22s, flying high cover, never had to fire a shot. The S-300 missile batteries, feared for their range, remained silent radars spinning in the void. The operation concluded with the successful transfer of the targets to US custody. Donald Trump's announcement on social media confirmed the end of an era, but the military reality on the ground is far more complex. The United States has decapitated the regime without destroying the Venezuelan armed forces. We are now looking at a country with a fully intact military apparatus, but no political head. This was a masterclass in hybrid warfare, combining cyber attacks, precision strikes, special operations, and likely psychological warfare to induce a total paralysis of the enemy defense. The map of South America has changed in a single night. If you want to follow the geopolitical fallout of this raid and understand what happens next with the Venezuelan military, make sure you are subscribed and have that notification bell turned on. The capture is just the beginning. I'll see you in the next debrief.